He's the kind of man most Korean men dream of being. He passed the notoriously difficult bar exam on his first try, breezed through his career, and became a prosecutor, the ultimate goal for every law student in Korea. Not only that, but he also married a stunning heiress from a wealthy family, and thanks to his position, he climbed to the top 1% of prosecutors, enjoying the real power that only a few could ever reach. What he didn't know was that this smooth journey would one day come back to haunt him like a bullet aimed right at him. But before all that, Tae-soo was just a handsome high school troublemaker, more known for getting into fights than hitting the books. His delinquent father had always drilled into him the idea that whoever has the strongest fists rules the world. That belief shattered one day when Tae-soo came home after school and saw his once dominant father on his knees, begging for mercy from another man. The man in the sharp suit? A prosecutor, one of the most powerful positions in Korea's civil service. In Korea, prosecutors hold almost unimaginable authority. While they're technically part of the administrative system, they wield absolute control over investigations, from what cases to pursue to how sentences are handed down. Even the police answer to them. No matter how high someone's social status, nobody dares cross a prosecutor. From that moment, Tae-soo, who had always scorned education, set his sights on a clear goal: becoming a prosecutor. But for someone like Tae-soo, who was at the bottom of his class, dreaming of becoming a top prosecutor seemed like pure fantasy. Yet, this student, whom even the teachers had given up on, discovered his own unique way of studying. He realized that the noisier the environment, the more efficiently he could absorb information. So, he developed what he called the white noise study method and began devouring his textbooks day and night. When the midterm results were announced, he shot up from 53rd place in the class to 12th.
진짜 봐봐. 어?
This was the first time he understood what it meant when someone spoke while taking off their watch. In the next individual exam, Tae-soo's grades stayed stellar. His success was so impressive that even his teachers had to apologize for underestimating him. From then on, he consistently ranked first in every test. It was as if Tae-soo's life had suddenly shifted into high gear. He easily got accepted into Seoul National University, graduated smoothly, completed his military service, and upon his discharge, immediately tackled the bar exam. While others were struggling and redoing their exams year after year, Tae-soo passed all 3 tests, including the prosecutor's interview, in just 2 years, fulfilling his dream of becoming a prosecutor. His sharp looks and prestigious job also helped him marry a beautiful heiress from a powerful family, leaving everyone around him envious. Knowledge had truly transformed Tae-soo's fate. He was driving luxury cars and walking in and out of high-level government offices while still in his youth. But despite his lofty title, Tae-soo didn't enjoy the perks of power that others might expect. Instead, he found himself overwhelmed, having to handle 150 cases a week. The workload left him feeling stretched thin. The final blow to his enthusiasm came when he saw a senior colleague, with years of experience, living in a cramped 20-square-meter rental with his family of 4. That's when Tae-soo began questioning whether becoming a prosecutor had really been the right choice after all. It wasn't until a visit from a respected senior prosecutor that Tae-soo finally saw what the role of a prosecutor should truly look like. Under the guise of catching up, the senior drove Tae-soo toward Seoul. Tae-soo was still puzzled when they arrived at the central prosecutor's office. This was where Tae-soo's dreams took form, the kind of office environment he'd always wanted in cases of national significance that a local prosecutor could never access in a lifetime. However, what puzzled Tae-soo was why the central office had so many classified files. The senior explained that timing, setting, and the right person were crucial to revealing such cases to the public. This was how prosecutors truly climbed the ladder. For a rookie like Tae-soo, this was a whole new world opening up. When the senior handed him a transfer order, Tae-soo's heart raced with excitement. But nothing comes without a price. Rising from a local office straight to the central prosecutor's office and even working under the legendary minister Han Jang-sik seemed far too easy. This opportunity stemmed from a recent case. Tae-soo had handled a middle school gym teacher accused of assaulting a female student. The arrogant teacher happened to be the son of a National Assembly member, and the student's mother had a mental disability, which should have made the case clear-cut. But instead, it ended in a quiet settlement. Yet Tae-soo, still fresh and idealistic, refused to give up on seeking justice for the student. He resolutely gathered evidence on his own, trying to bring this teacher to justice even though the man had the audacity to invite Tae-soo for drinks during the trial. It was this determination that prompted the senior prosecutor's late-night visit.
무릎 꿇을게. 선배님. 네, 무릎 꿇.
태수야, 자존심 잠깐이다. 누군 서울대학 안 나오고 누군 40패스 안 했냐? 크게 봐야 돼. 넓게 보고. 너 1라인만 잘 타잖아? 고생 끝이야.
The chance to join the Central Prosecutor's strategic team was an irresistible temptation for Tae-soo. After all, angering Han Jang-sik, who would undoubtedly become the chief prosecutor, seemed like an unwise choice. After a long night of reflection, Tae-soo silenced the last of his conscience and accepted the senior's offer. The case was quickly closed with a settlement of 50 million won, and Tae-soo secured his entry into the central office, as well as the chance to meet the legendary prosecutor, Han Jang-sik. Han Jang-sik was notorious for his iron-fisted approach to justice, but what Tae-soo didn't expect was to see the same arrogant gym teacher at the gathering, boasting about how his connections had kept him from facing real consequences. Tae-soo's visible disgust didn't go unnoticed by Han Jang-sik.
어디서 가고 잡고 있어? 검찰 들어오니까 세상 다 네 거 같아. 표정 다 드러내고.
부장님 죄송합니다. 이 친구가 처음이라 소신 같은 것도 있고 또...
소신! 우리 자존심이나 정의 촌스럽게 그딴 거 좀 버리자.
With every word, Han chipped away at the mountain of justice and pride that had once stood tall in Tae-soo's heart, reducing it to rubble.
부장님 러브샷 한번 하겠습니다. 야, 한 잔 먹자. 딱 한 잔 먹고 푸는 거야.
Han Jang-sik was pleased with Tae-soo's response. It meant that Tae-soo had officially joined the power-hungry world where influence reigned supreme. What Tae-soo didn't expect, though, was that after the party, the gym teacher, drunk and arrogant, continued to provoke him. Tae-soo, on the brink of losing control, was about to strike when someone beat him to it. A young man delivered a brutal punch, cutting the teacher's chance to offend again short.
너 뭐야?
나 모르겠냐.
The man was Do-il, an old friend from Tae-soo's delinquent days. Unlike Tae-soo, who earned his status through hard work, Do-il drifted through life and ended up as a key figure in the Wild Dog Gang, the largest criminal organization in Mokpo, supported by none other than Han Jang-sik. After years apart, the two old friends reunited, sharing drinks and memories, one heading to the police to turn himself in, the other embarking on his true journey as a prosecutor. Tae-soo never imagined how intoxicating power could be. He became the pride of his powerful in-laws, and his name frequently appeared in the headlines of major news outlets. Whether it was corporate tycoons or politicians, everyone bowed down to him and Han Jang-sik. His daily mission? Follow Han Jang-sik's lead. They would choose targets, investigate, reap rewards, and control public opinion. Even Do-il, sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison, only served a comfortable 8 months thanks to Tae-soo's influence. Tae-soo's wife, a member of the wealthy Chaebol family, was effortlessly transferred from the grueling 6 a.m. news slot to the primetime 6 p.m. news broadcast with just one phone call. Tae-soo was at the peak of his career, and everyone around him prospered from his success. But the good times didn't last. The 1997 presidential election loomed, a period of intense political tension, especially for prosecutors. Elections always brought uncertainty, though prosecutors' roles would remain untouched. Internal allegiances mattered. The entire prosecutor's office was on edge. Even the usually composed Han Jang-sik showed signs of stress. Who won the election would determine whether they rose to new heights or were immediately stripped of their positions. Han Jang-sik, abandoning his usual materialist and atheist views, turned to spiritual rituals, seeking divine protection. In the end, he was relieved. Kim Dae-jung, after multiple failed attempts, finally won and became South Korea's 8th president. This was a cause for unprecedented celebration in the strategic department. Towers of champagne symbolized their imminent dominance in the coming years. Han Jang-sik became even more audacious, baring his fangs to eliminate anyone who opposed him. Even the chief prosecutor wasn't spared his wrath. Tae-soo, too, reaped tremendous benefits from this feast of power. Meanwhile, Do-il steadily expanded his territory in Seoul's wealthy Gangnam district, his actions largely ignored thanks to Tae-soo's protection. The gang leader simply turned a blind eye. But as the saying goes, whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad. Tae-soo and his circle began to believe that nothing in Korea was beyond their reach, that no one was more powerful than them. Even their leisurely outings were accompanied by a police escort, as if under martial law. However, their unchecked arrogance soon caught the attention of the Special Investigations Unit, and Tae-soo, being the weakest link, became their primary target. The time of celebration was brief, As soon it was once again the tense period leading up to the next major election, even Han Jang-sik stepped in to warn Tae-soo.
그리고 두일이 개를 잘못 키우면 어떻게 돼? 주인 물어.
Do-il's secret expansion of his influence had now become a direct threat to their position. Tae-soo knew he should stop Do-il's reckless, rabid behavior, but this time he hesitated, unable to speak up. He, too, was facing a crisis like never before. Tae-soo's affair with a famous actress had been thoroughly exposed by a private detective hired by his wife. Once Tae-soo was kicked out of his powerful in-laws' house, he lost his safety net and could no longer avoid becoming Han Jang-sik's sacrificial pawn. But Han Jang-sik would also pay for his own miscalculations in backing the wrong political candidate. No one in Han's position would have supported a president intent on judicial reform, but despite all the rituals and fervent prayers for divine intervention, the fearless, people-centered candidate, Roh Moo-hyun, won a landslide victory in the election. For Tae-soo, not only did he fail to salvage the marriage he had painstakingly built, but things got even worse. Do-il's bid to overthrow his boss also ended in failure. This was the second time Tae-soo saw someone take off their watch in front of him. It was Do-il, whose criminal activities had now entangled their most powerful backer, Han Jang-sik, jeopardizing Han's chances of becoming chief prosecutor. As Do-il's friend, the best course of action now was to get him into prison to hide from the fallout.
너는 묵비권을 행사할 수 있고 변호사를 선임할 수 있어. 얘기를 겁나게 됐네.
Tae-soo finally witnessed just how ruthless Han Jang-sik could be. During the election, it was Han who had leaked damaging information about President Roh Moo-hyun. Now, he was desperate to reverse the tide. Han personally drowned a key witness and shifted all the blame onto a subordinate prosecutor, accusing them of negligence in handling Roh's case. It was as if Han had presented an offering to the king, personally removing the thorn from the ruler's side. But without his powerful father-in-law to shield him, Tae-soo became the scapegoat in this deadly game. Tae-soo was transferred out of the central prosecutor's office with nothing but an empty promise that he would be brought back when things cooled down. He returned to his hometown in disgrace. But what no one expected was the political storm brewing in South Korea. Just 1 year after taking office, President Roh Moo-hyun faced impeachment from the National Assembly. The entire country was thrown into chaos, and people were gripped by fear. Meanwhile, Do-il, despite being well cared for under Tae-soo's protection in prison, found himself in a precarious situation. His men, also imprisoned, were being systematically executed under various pretexts. The only person Do-il could trust was Tae-soo. He handed over his secret wealth, accumulated over the years, to Tae-soo, asking him to take care of his remaining brothers. But instead of keeping the money, Tae-soo, in an effort to secure Do-il's safety, returned it to the Wild Dog Gang's boss. Once a powerful and untouchable prosecutor, Tae-soo now spent his days in a haze of despair, waiting for anything to change. He didn't know if he could ever make a comeback, but one thing was certain: he could never betray Han Jang-sik. When a female prosecutor from the Special Investigations Unit secretly approached Tae-soo, he lashed out with the most despicable methods, driving her away like a madman.
왜? 야!
But his efforts earned him nothing but cold indifference from his former mentor.
진짜 눈치 없네. 나이가 몇이냐? 아니 지방 총구석으로 쫓겨갔으면 대충 알아서 옷 벗든지.
Even when Do-il was released from prison, Tae-soo was too ashamed to face him. Do-il, feeling betrayed by Tae-soo's absence, gathered his men and confronted his once loyal friend, now drowning in alcohol.
네가 나 이렇게 만들었냐?
그게 중요하냐 지금? 응? 유일아 정신 차려 이 개새끼야! 우리 끝났어 이 비용신 새끼야. 누가 이렇게 만들어도 그게 뭐가 중요해 이 새끼야. 혹시라도 할 거야?
Tae-soo's words left Do-il stunned, unable to remember that he had come with the intent to settle the score with his old friend once and for all. Barely escaping the confrontation, Tae-soo was heading home when, to his astonishment, he saw two people he had longed to see for so many sleepless nights. They greeted him with warm smiles as if all the trouble had passed and peace had returned. Overcome with emotion, Tae-soo joined them in conversation, drinking and reminiscing like in the old days, unaware that Do-il hadn't given up on his revenge. Ignoring his men's warnings, Do-il quietly followed them. As the three of them laughed and talked, Do-il slammed his car into theirs, sending the vehicle careening uncontrollably toward the roadside. Unfortunately, the car wasn't hit in the engine, and the three of them escaped with only minor injuries. But what puzzled Tae-soo was how Han Jang-sik barely glanced at him before leaving with their senior prosecutor, heading to a different hospital without any further contact. After Tae-soo recovered, a chance encounter during a raid on a gambling den led him to capture one of Do-il's men, who revealed the truth behind that fateful day. Do-il had learned that Han Jang-sik planned to deceive Tae-soo. The plan was to take Tae-soo to the Wild Dog Gang's hideout, where he would be silenced, becoming nothing more than a meal for the gang's vicious enforcers. On that day, Do-il, ignoring the pleas of his subordinates, deliberately caused the accident to save his only true friend. He successfully diverted Han Jang-sik's attention and had been on the run ever since, hunted by both the police and the gang. Eventually, Do-il grew tired of living in constant fear and decided to turn himself in. Outnumbered and overpowered, Do-il met his end in front of his boss and Han Jang-sik, torn apart by the wild dogs. Tae-soo lost the friend who had once promised to protect him, a smile on his face even in his final moments. But the forces against Tae-soo were far from finished. His father was arrested, and another deal was laid out. If Tae-soo resigned as a prosecutor, his father would be released. The bullet Tae-soo had metaphorically fired in his youth, thinking he was aiming in the right direction, had now come full circle to hit him years later. Standing by the sea, Tae-soo drank an entire bottle of strong liquor in one go and collapsed. He imagined how different his life could have been if he hadn't let that gym teacher go, if he hadn't followed Han Jang-sik down a corrupt path. But there are no what-ifs in life. Time moved on relentlessly. Tae-soo was resuscitated, but on the same day, the last great man of Korea's 21st century, President Roh Moo-hyun, met a tragic end, falling from a cliff. Roh had fought against a deeply corrupted system but ultimately could not change it. While the nation mourned his death, there were already those eager to celebrate their victory. One man's battle couldn't change the world, but someone else would have to carry on that fight. Though Tae-soo had lost everything, his wealth, love, and friends, he still had one last shot. He spent the remainder of his money on a tailored suit identical to Do-il's, bought a luxury car, and rented a respectable office in Seoul's Uedo district. He reached out to the female prosecutor who had once been demoted after failing to take down Han Jang-sik, hoping to partner with her for revenge. He also reconnected with his ex-wife, though their reunion was far from romantic. They shared a meal in a cheap fast food restaurant, and Tae-soo didn't say a word about missing her or wanting her back. Yet, by the time they appeared together again, they had already remarried. Tae-soo, leveraging his father-in-law's connections, approached key figures in the opposition party.
정치 이거 세상 못 바꿉니다.
정치로 세상을 바꿀 생각은 없습니다.
그럼?
누군가 잡고 싶은 사람은
He intended to run for office and expose the corruption within the prosecutor's office. When Tae-soo finally appeared on television, the now-promoted chief prosecutor Han Jang-sik couldn't remain calm. For the first time, Tae-soo saw Han look at him with a real sense of recognition. Both men held damning secrets over the other, and it was clear that their negotiations wouldn't end peacefully. The bullet of justice this time was aimed directly at the once invincible Han Jang-sik. Due to an anonymous whistleblower, his underground organization, the Wild Dog Gang, was completely taken down in a single sweep. As a spokesman for the opposition, Tae-soo knew how to use one scandal to overshadow another. The moment he spoke at his press conference, he drew all the reporters away from Han Jang-sik's own media event, where Han was preparing to expose Tae-soo's father-in-law.
정치의 1번지 종로로 공천해 주시기 바랍니다.
For the first time, Han was visibly furious, and that bullet of judgment ultimately brought him down, collapsing the empire he had built. Tae-soo successfully secured the nomination to run for office, but he knew deep down that he was no different, just another player in the endless game of power, a loyal dog in the struggle for control. Whether he won or not, it no longer seemed to matter.